In a move of calculated precision, President Trump has just ordered a 90-day suspension of most global tariffs, like a cool breeze sweeping across a market stretched tight as a wire. The immediate impact? The Dow Jones surged over 800 points, while the S&P 500 jumped 1.9% in its first session after the announcement. A clear sigh of relief from investors, as the looming threat of a global trade war takes a brief pause. But Trump did not ease up on China. Far from it. He slammed Chinese imports with a staggering 125% tariff, his most aggressive move since the very beginning of this trade battle. According to Richard Quest from CNN, this is a high-stakes game of tit for tat, but also, perhaps, a signal that both sides might be quietly seeking an off-ramp behind the scenes. China, however, shows no sign of backing down. Beijing declared it will fight to the end, ready to endure a prolonged deadlock. Yet, some analysts believe this 125% figure may be exactly what China had anticipated, a price they're willing to pay, to buy time, and keep the door to negotiation cracked open. Amid the financial chaos, President Trump has declared a 90-day suspension of global tariffs after the stock markets witnessed a staggering wipeout of over $6.4 trillion and faced a relentless storm of criticism from leading economists. The U.S. Treasury Secretary rushed to reassure the markets, claiming the new 10% tariff cap would help stabilize the situation. But analysts remain deeply concerned, warning that even this level is still too high, continuing to erode global trade confidence, bit by bit. What's even more telling, over 75 countries have made urgent calls to Washington, scrambling to negotiate individual deals, seeking exemptions or tariff reductions. Mexico and Canada emerged as the front-runners, both securing relief with their tariffs slashed down to 10%. However, China did not make that list. Beijing's exports remain crushed under the brutal weight of a 125% tariff, a textbook punishment for their previous retaliatory moves. Experts are sounding the alarm, saying that even as Trump pulls back part of his tariff decree, the deepening policy uncertainty in the U.S. looms like a dark cloud, casting shadows across global markets and smothering business confidence worldwide.
Turns out that the stock market has really kind of rejected the notion that if we turn on our trading partners, chickens would lay more eggs. Yeah, I mean, when Biden was president, it was everything about the eggs, the price of eggs. We got to lower the price of eggs. And now Trump retweeted somebody last week who said, shut up about the eggs.
Yes, you heard that right. Trump and his egg price plan. While the entire country is in turmoil over soaring egg prices, Biden is struggling with his campaign to lower egg prices. But no, just last week, Trump made a comeback on Twitter and exclaimed, "Everyone shut up about the eggs." A move that will go down in history for a president who can stir up any topic. Indeed, Trump, the hero not only of the economy, but also the egg protector. Sure, eggs may not be as important as trade wars, but wasn't Trump also the one with the trade initiative?
$5 trillion in 3 weeks, and we have only ourselves to blame. Trump said this would happen if we re-elected Biden. Oh, wait, that didn't happen. No, this is happening because Trump wants to bring back manufacturing, and to get the ball rolling, he is manufacturing a recession.
All right, listen closely. Trump doesn't just want to bring manufacturing back to America. He also wants to manufacture a recession. Isn't that his specialty? It sounds like he's trying to recreate what he once claimed. There will be a disaster if Biden is re-elected. But wait. Hold on. This disaster is something Trump is actually manufacturing himself. Of course, with Trump, any issue can be manufactured, even a recession, as long as he can keep extending the America First promise, even though no one remembers it ever coming to fruition.
What is he trying to tell us? And I'm not saying Donald Trump is secretly. It doesn't look like much of a secret. I don't think he is. Quite the contrary. I think the message to his manosphere is that he's so masculine that he can literally jerk off two guys at once while dancing to the village people and still be considered a masculine icon.
And here it is. Bill Maher's humorous yet slightly awkward take on Trump and his masculinity. Maher isn't saying Trump is, but he bluntly sends a message about Trump's manosphere. A group of men so masculine, they can do anything, even dance with the village people, and still maintain that tough guy image. Of course, this is a satire on how Trump has crafted his macho image, one that only his most die-hard supporters believe he can pull off without breaking a sweat.
Let's spin the big tariff wheel. Woo! Round and around she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. And every day, Trump puts these amazingly large tariffs on other countries, and when the countries respond with their tariffs, he acts shocked at their disrespect. How dare you do to me what I just did to you?
Now, imagine Trump as the one spinning the tariff wheel, spinning round and round without knowing when it will stop. And then, when other countries respond with tariffs, Trump suddenly exclaims, "How dare you do this to me?" This is the classic, "What goes around comes around." Yet he pretends to be shocked. This is the reality of Trump's economic policy. A joke that has lasted throughout his entire term, where every tax cut action only ends up hurting hard-working citizens, while Trump continues to make excuses for himself.
Yeah, I'm getting Donald Trump for my birthday. Oh, I keep saying, God, why? And then I go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. The last 25 years I've been making fun of you on TV. That's okay. That's that little religious. You hated that, too. I remember. Okay.
And here's the final point Bill Maher brings up. Trump always appears as the unwanted birthday gift. Maher says that for the past 25 years, he's been mocking Trump on TV. And every time he looks back, he can't believe he's still facing this gift. Indeed, if someone has been mocked for that long, even the shock of receiving that gift back can't make you more disappointed. While Maher jokes about this birthday gift, the truth is, for many Americans, Trump has truly become an economic nightmare. What Trump created during his term is like a comedy movie. Except the victims can't laugh because it's all too real. From setting tariffs like spinning a roulette wheel, to the outlandish claims about the economy, it's all just smoke and mirrors. A satirical scam that Bill Maher has exposed in full detail.
Is the U.S. economy truly on the brink of collapse? With the decision to impose a 104% tariff on China, Trump has caused the stock market to plummet, wiping out trillions of dollars. And while everything is in chaos, he holds a chaotic press conference, continuing to attack countries like Germany and Canada. Can America recover from this shock? Liberation. Through controversial policies. On a crucial day, Trump made a shocking decision, imposing a 104% tariff on China. This decision immediately sparked negative reactions from the financial markets. With a severe collapse in stock indices, the market had started to show signs of recovery after the previous crisis. But it quickly lost momentum, plummeting, causing trillions of dollars to vanish in a short time. These are clear signs that the U.S. economy is standing on the brink of recession. As the economy faces the threat of collapse, Trump holds a chaotic press conference. In it, he not only discusses tax policies, but also strongly criticizes other nations, notably Germany. Trump claims that Germany has gone too far with renewable energy policies.
Germany went green, very green. They went so green they almost went out of business. Germany was finished. They went to wind. The wind wasn't blowing too much.
Trump declares. However, it is his own decisions that are pushing the U.S. economy into crisis as economic indicators begin to plummet and investor confidence weakens. These remarks aren't just unsettling the economy. They're causing America to lose its global influence, especially in issues of sustainable development and renewable energy. Trump didn't just attack China. He also turned his focus to Canada, accusing the country of being a drug den killing Americans. However, these accusations were completely baseless. With no evidence to support them, Trump claimed Canada will pay for what they've done, but provided nothing to back up these claims. He continued to blame Canada for fentanyl trafficking, without offering any concrete proof. Just vague thoughts from his own mind. These unfounded words didn't just escalate tensions between the U.S. and Canada. They also made America's other allies feel uneasy and isolated as these baseless statements grow more frequent. The lack of transparency and the doubts about Trump's leadership have become a major concern on the world stage. The instability in Trump's remarks has made international diplomacy more tense than ever, undermining relationships between the U.S. and other countries. These decisions have only increased the concerns about Trump's unstable policies, as no nation can predict his next move in foreign policy. Immediately, Canada's response was swift and strong. Prime Minister Mark Carney declared,
I will reject all attempts to weaken Canada, all attempts to wear us down, to break us down, so that America can own us.
These words make it clear that the relationship between the two nations is seriously fractured. And this fracture isn't just affecting bilateral ties. It's impacting America's global policies. Even Doug Ford, a former Trump supporter, has vigorously criticized his policies. It's unfortunate for the American people, but the fault lies entirely with Trump, said Doug Ford. Countries across Europe and Asia quickly turned their backs on the U.S., strengthening ties with major rivals like China. Countries that were once close allies are now looking to reduce their dependence on the U.S. and shifting their focus to new global partnerships. Trump's tariff policies haven't just isolated America. They've also weakened the U.S.'s influence on the global stage. Once close friends, now Trump is abandoned by his allies, and even former partners are blocking him due to his reckless policies. Nations that once were strategic partners of the U.S. are now seeking to minimize their reliance on America and shifting cooperation toward other countries, including China. This highlights a significant decline in America's influence in an increasingly multipolar world where nations now have options and are shifting their global cooperation strategies. In the midst of the U.S. economy facing serious struggles from high inflation to soaring gas prices and rising unemployment, Trump decided to raise global tariffs. Imposing high tariffs on other nations not only worsens the economic situation, it also alienates many international partners, countries that are looking to maintain effective trade relations with the U.S. Instead of addressing urgent issues like tax reform, lowering gas prices, or supporting workers, Trump chooses the trade war strategy as a way to distract public attention from America's internal problems. These decisions have not only plunged the U.S. economy into further decline, but have also created global instability, as nations begin to shield themselves from the negative impact of America's tariff policies. The Make America Great Again slogan has now become, Make Recession Real Fast. Trump's policies are not only sending the U.S. economy into a downward spiral, but also creating chaos worldwide. As countries scramble to protect their own interests from America's unilateral moves.
He's so stupid. I mean, look at the lame, inane things that he said. He's so stupid, he can't even say anything clever or smooth. He's a moron.
Robert De Niro, known for his roles as tough mafia bosses and hardened old men, has taken his acting skills to a whole new level by becoming an expert on analyzing Donald Trump's intelligence. De Niro didn't need any acting flair, as he directly called Trump stupid. The audience burst into laughter, and Trump was probably left wondering if he could tweet something smarter than "Kafif." Perhaps Trump should consider hiring De Niro as his media consultant, because every time Trump opens his mouth, his image as the stable genius becomes shakier than ever.
Understand why people are not taking him seriously, because you read about it historically in other countries that they didn't take the people seriously. I think Hitler, Mussolini, they're fools and clowns. Well, and I hear it. There's some people. I mean, who does not think that this guy is going to do exactly what he says he's going to do.
Right.
He's done it already.
Right.
Amidst the laughter, De Niro suddenly turned serious and warned the audience. History is filled with clowns who were underestimated, only to later become a nightmare. If anyone still doubts this, just think of Hitler and Mussolini, two unwitting comedians who were once mocked as harmless fools before they turned the world into a living hell. De Niro emphasized humor is fine, but if Trump continues to be underestimated after the election, the one laughing last might just be the clown with the golden hair we are mocking today.
A scary one. And in all seriousness, and we know it here, people have to get out and vote and vote and vote and vote.
Yeah. One Chinese. You think he pretends to be dumber than he is to confuse people and make them think, no, you think he's...
No. I don't think so.
Why?
De Niro posed the question with a touch of sharp humor. Is Trump pretending to be stupid to deceive everyone? And De Niro's answer could not have been clearer. Trump isn't smart enough to pretend. This verbal knockout was both witty and sharp, sending the entire audience into a fit of laughter. Trump, who always boasts about being smarter than the generals and doctors, is probably now Googling the definition of the word stupid.
Well, he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face.
Trump loves portraying himself as the strong man when he says, "I want to punch someone in the face." But De Niro immediately responds, "Oh, I want to punch him in the face." A quick, sharp retort that had the audience roaring like watching an action scene straight from De Niro's own movies. Trump may talk tough online, but face-to-face with De Niro, he could very well end up being the smallest man Hollywood has ever seen.
Look, between you people, don't talk to me that way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way.
Trump, who once prided himself on his bullying style with reporters, constantly flaunted his power, declaring, "No one is allowed to speak to the president like that." But this time, De Niro and Jimmy Kimmel teamed up, turning Trump from the most powerful man in the world into the image of a whining child in a supermarket, crying out for silence, throwing a tantrum. Trump, like a child who lost his favorite toy, screams, cries, and gets so angry that viewers are left not knowing whether to laugh or feel sympathy for a great president who is so easily wounded.
Jimmy Kimmel's a loser. We would do Jimmy Kimmel. I'd do Jimmy Kimmel. I did him a lot.
Yeah.
He used to greet me on the sidewalk outside of his studio. I'd come in. This was before politics, of course. But I'd come in, and he'd be standing on the sidewalk. "Oh, sir, may I bring you in?" He'd bring me in every time. And then I ran for politics. I never, got involved with him much. But all they do is talk bad about Trump. That's all. The whole show is talking bad.
Trump finally exposed his petty and jealous nature by attempting to get back at Jimmy Kimmel, calling him a loser. A response so lifeless, it seemed as though Trump was desperately trying to salvage his image by belittling others to the level of disrespecting me is a crime. Hollywood scored a significant win this time, and Trump, the man who once boasted, "I never fail," now spends his time typing bitter tweets, hoping against hope that someone will believe the fabricated story about Kimmel bowing to him on the street. What a desperate plea for justice from a former president of the United States.
China has unexpectedly stopped importing LNG from the U.S. worth $2.4 billion per year, causing a shock to the global energy market. Australia has been chosen as a replacement in China's strategy to restructure its global influence. In March 2025, China suddenly announced the suspension of all LNG imports from the United States. This move is seen as a direct retaliation after the U.S. imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese goods just a month prior. As the world's largest LNG exporter in 2024, with over 91 million tons in production, the U.S. unexpectedly lost access to its second-largest market. Immediately following the announcement, China quickly diverted its LNG shipments to Europe, avoiding U.S. tariffs and expanding its influence in a market urgently seeking energy alternatives to Russian supplies. While the U.S. is kicked out of the game, Europe becomes the new destination for China's LNG shipments. Countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and Italy swiftly adjust their import policies to take advantage of the cheaper LNG from Asia. The EU government quickly launches storage projects, expands seaport infrastructure, and increases investment in energy transfer systems within the bloc. With urgent energy needs in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, Europe welcomes the redirected LNG flow, while the U.S. can only watch as revenue flows into the hands of others. Result? The U.S. loses market share, loses partners, and loses its bargaining power in Europe, a market that had been central to its post-COVID and post-energy crisis strategy. While the U.S. market is reeling, Australia quietly signs a $1.5 billion contract with China Resources Gas, one of China's largest energy conglomerates. This 15-year deal, starting in 2027, will supply 600,000 tons of LNG per year. Australia's LNG is not only 20% cheaper than American gas, but also takes 10 fewer days to transport due to its closer geographic location to China. The Woodside contract is not just a commercial success, it's a geopolitical statement. Australia, a longtime ally of the U.S., is now China's leading energy partner. China, with a population of 1.44 billion, and being the second largest economy in the world, has massive energy demands, making LNG the backbone of its national energy strategy. After the U.S. imposed tariffs on Chinese goods in 2019, Beijing began gradually reducing its dependence on U.S. LNG. By 2024, LNG from the U.S. accounted for only 5.4% of its imports, down sharply from nearly 20% previously. Instead, China has proactively signed long-term agreements with Qatar, Russia, and Central Asia, invested in the East Asia gas pipeline from Russia, set to operate in 2027, strengthened strategic cooperation with Australia in both LNG and critical minerals. All of this is to maintain energy autonomy and avoid reliance on a single partner, particularly amid ongoing trade tensions. Before China stopped imports, the U.S. exported about 400,000 tons of LNG to China annually, generating $2.4 billion. However, after the suspension, U.S. LNG export terminals are left with piles of unsold stock, contracts are canceled, and shipping costs skyrocket. Meanwhile, Australia, which had previously trailed the U.S. in LNG market share, seizes the opportunity, surpassing the U.S. to become the primary LNG choice for China and many other Asian economies. With this shock to the billion-dollar market, the U.S. LNG industry faces the risk of restructuring. While the global energy market has entered a new era, one where not only price but also geopolitical strategy will be the deciding factor.
Are any questions?
How was the golf tournament?
Very good. Because I won. It's good to win. You heard I won, right? Did you hear I won?
Sure. Yeah.
Just to back it up. You were there. I won.
What's your handicap
I like
these
to bring
days?
very low. I have a very low handicap. Okay.
While Trump proudly flaunts his golf victory, the U.S. economy and the world are being sinking into an economic storm like never before. Millions of Americans are starting to show discontent. The market loses control, collapsing with Trump's tax and golf theory. As Trump boarded Air Force One, just leaving Mar-a-Lago, he not only boasted about his golf victory, but also confidently declared that the market needs to suffer to heal. But what's the truth? The U.S. stock market had its worst day in decades, with both the Dow and S&P hitting their lowest points. The crisis didn't just affect the U.S., it spread globally. Japan's stock market even had to halt trading due to the uncontrollable downturn. Surely Trump didn't anticipate that his own decisions were pushing the economy into this state. Yet Trump refuses to take responsibility. He continues to insist that it's the necessary medicine. But will this medicine really heal the economy, or is it just a convenient excuse for the failures of a president returning to the White
We will be
House?
taking in over $1 trillion over the next short period of time with the tariffs that I've already instituted. They're already in place. Now, what's going to happen with the market, I can't tell you, but I can tell you our country has gotten a lot stronger. And eventually, it'll be a country like no other. It'll be the most dominant country economically in the world.
The world reacts. America is being isolated. Countries are upset with the trade war. Trump's decisions are not only affecting the U.S. economy, but they have also caused partner nations worldwide to take action. China was the first to respond, imposing tariffs on U.S. goods and seeking agreements with other partners to minimize the impact. The European Union could not stay silent either. They criticized Trump's tax policies as a major blow to the global economy, gradually isolating the U.S. from the international trade arena. Japan and Canada have also spoken out, warning about the impact of this trade war on the global financial system. All these nations are concerned about economic instability, and America's isolation could have severe consequences, not only for itself, but also for all its allies. Will the U.S. continue down this path, or will it find a way to adjust its policies and get back on track? Americans react, loss of faith and anger. As the stock market plunges, the American people are beginning to feel the tangible failure of Trump's policies. Workers, farmers, and small businesses are bearing the brunt of these tariff policies. American farmers are facing skyrocketing costs for fertilizer and fuel, driving up production costs, while other nations stop buying their products. Small businesses can no longer absorb the rising costs and are forced to shut down, leaving thousands of workers unemployed. Yet, Trump insists that America will come back strong. But can the American people still believe these promises when they are confronted with the painful reality that his policies are weakening their economy? Experts and the press continue to criticize these tariff policies as ill-considered and counterproductive. Trump may take pride in his decisions, but the American people are paying the price for his misplaced confidence. With every decision Trump makes, the U.S. economy slips further into deadlock. And these trade wars don't just harm the economy, they push the country toward a potential long-term recession. International partners continue to protest, causing the U.S. to become more isolated in the global marketplace. Yet Trump refuses to quit the game, and the story continues to unfold as his decisions persist in creating unpredictable impacts. The Dow Jones just tanked over 1,200 points. J.P. Morgan raised the chances of a recession to 60%. And Fox News, once Trump's most loyal hype squad, is now turning on him with 3 brutal words: poorly executed disaster. So, what's going on?
Thursday was the worst day for stocks since March 2020, and very early this morning, prices were falling again.
Donald Trump just launched what he proudly calls the Liberation Day tariffs, a sweeping wave of import taxes meant to bring manufacturing back to America. But instead of a patriotic celebration, Wall Street reacted like it had just been hit by an economic AR strike. The Nasdaq nosedived 4.5%. And the S&P 500 dropped more than 3%, marking the worst day for the market since the 2020 pandemic crash.
J.P. Morgan upping its recession odds to 60% from 40% previously, citing obviously the tariffs, the effect on business sentiment, the effect on investment, and the effect on and on consumer prices. They said, quote, these policies, if sustained, would likely push the U.S. and possibly global economy into recession.
What was pitched as liberation has quickly turned into straight-up chaos, leaving millions of investors stranded in the middle of an unplanned, unpredictable trade war. Fox News, once the ironclad media fortress standing guard for Trump, is now the first to feel the shift in the wind.
This big, beautiful economy that actually was rolling pretty good with jobs and inflation coming down feels more like the Game of Thrones. I mean, it is not going well. This is being executed.
They used to sing hymns about the great Trump economy. But now, their veteran anchors and trusted guests are on air throwing out words like disaster, poorly executed, and even intellectually dishonest. One longtime commentator dropped the mic with this line, "I believed in this. And tonight, I feel like a sucker." That confession didn't just sting. It signaled something bigger, that the protective shell around Trump's economic narrative is cracking. Tariffs might sound like something only CEOs and politicians worry about. But the truth is, the bill always lands on the backs of everyday Americans. When car parts, electronics, even medical supplies get hit with tariffs, you pay more for what you actually need.
Was holding up fine. The economy was good. Everything was fine. Now there's this blinding light, like a giant searchlight staring at everyone with these tariffs. And these numbers aren't going to make any difference at all. What the market is worried about is what's going to happen in the future. Who's going to hire now in this uncertain environment? I think people are very, very concerned.
As production costs go up, companies don't hire, they cut, which means more layoffs and fewer jobs.
Well, BMW is going to rethink South Carolina because it's not going to import tariffed parts, engines from Germany.
BMW warned it may shut down its South Carolina plant because importing parts from Germany has become too expensive. The very thing this policy promised to protect, American jobs, is becoming its first victim. There was a time when anti-free trade conservatives saw Trump as a hero against globalism. But now, even they are speaking out. They haven't changed their beliefs. They just can't defend the way Trump is executing them.
Yesterday, President Trump declared that it was, in fact, Liberation Day. His giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally. Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans, be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968.
And the real cost? It's not hitting China. It's hitting American families in their grocery bills, their paychecks, and their ability to retire on time.
S&P 500 drops of 5% or more at this point in a presidency. There are only two of them, right? There's Donald Trump, a 10% drop since he took office. The only one that matches it or exceeds it was George W. Bush back in 2001, a drop of 18%. This is it.
Trump once promised that the economy would bloom like never before, but in reality, it's been withering. One financial headline at a time. Prices remain high. Inflation hasn't cooled. Manufacturing isn't coming back as promised. Some companies are even moving production overseas, just to avoid getting hit with layered tariffs. But this time, it's not terrorism causing the damage. It's his own policies.